Welcome to my next Lost Season 1 episode review video. Before I get into that though, pretty important if you aren't caught up to the point where I am in rewatching or watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, you find that you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this video any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And for all of you out there that are wondering, I've seen Lost all the way through at least 3 times so far. I wanted to rewatch the show and relive the show and take my time with it. Instead of binging it, I wanted to watch an episode or 2 a week to let it resonate. So I'm doing that, but I'm not the only one that's watching Lost. The legendary Crazy Coffee Man, who you see in my comment section, is also watching Lost, but it's his first time watching this show. So let's go on the journey and let's discuss the show in the comment section. No spoilers, only up until the episode that I'm talking about. Nothing afterwards due to the fact that Crazy Coffee Man has yet to see this show. With all that said, though, this will be Lost, Season 1, Episode 21. The title of this episode is called The Greater Good. And this will be my review, reaction, recap after just finishing watching the episode. So Sayid and Shannon sit with Boone's body. Sayid asks if there's anything he can do for Shannon. And he says Boone was brave to the end. He wouldn't let Jack use up the antibiotics and wouldn't let Jack take his leg. And then we have a Sayid flashback. Sayid is led through the airport in handcuffs to an interrogation room. Inside, he's introduced to CIA agent Alyssa Cole and ASIS agent Robbie Hewitt. 300 pounds of C4 explosives were stolen from an army base outside of Melbourne by a terrorist cell. One of the members of this cell is Assam Tassar, with whom Sayid shared a room at Cairo University. If Sayid will infiltrate this cell through his friendship with Assam, the CIA will tell Sayid where he can find Nadia. Back on the island, Kate finds Jack, who is running erratically through the jungle looking for John Locke. He's obviously sleep-deprived, low on blood, and furious because he based his medical treatment of Boone on Locke's story that he'd fallen off a cliff, which actually is what happened, kind of. He was in the plane that fell off the cliff. And Jack feels that if he'd been properly informed from the beginning, he might have been able to save Boone, and thus he sees Locke as a murderer for lying. Kate asks him to come back to camp because the group needs leadership and because Jack's been running through the jungle in circles. Hurley and Jack carry Boone's remains to the burial site for a funeral, and I'd like to give it a special shout out to Ian Somerhalder, the actor that plays Boone. The ladies just love that man, but he did a good job in his time, or for his time on Lost. And the entire camp is present for this, and a somber Jack asks Shannon to say a few words about her brother, but she can't. And then after a pregnant pause, Sayid gives the eulogy. And then when Sayid finishes, John Locke arrives. He's still covered in Boone's blood. He takes the blame for Boone's death and tries to explain the circumstances. The Beechcraft in the tree, his leg, the radio, the plane falling, almost everything. He calls Boone a hero. Jack has heard enough. He tackles John Locke and starts to pummel him, screaming that Locke lied. Finally, Sawyer and Charlie manage to pull him off. Jack collapses from sheer exhaustion. And then sometime later, Sayid, Kate, and Son walk Jack back to his tent and try to calm him down. Jack insists Locke is lying. He tells them Boone's last words about the hatch and how Locke had told him not to tell. And then they convince him it's more important at the moment for the one doctor on the island to be rested. Then we go back to the Sayid flashback. In Australia, Sayid is praying in a mosque and watching Assam, who is praying a few rows in front of him. Towards the end of the prayer, Assam turns and recognizes Sayid, and then Sayid meets with him outside the mosque, and the two catch up on old times. Assam has been in Sydney for about a year working as a lumberjack, and Sayid inquires about Zahara, Assam's wife, and learns she was killed some time ago by a stray bomb while shopping. Saeed gives his condolences, and Assam invites Saeed to come to his apartment. In Assam's apartment, his roommates Yusef and Haddad are playing a video game, and Saeed is introduced. And during the course of this small talk, he notices an electronic surveillance device in the smoke detector. Saeed takes Haddad's cigarette, holds it up to the alarm, and nothing happens. Saeed takes apart the alarm and finds a listening device. Assam explains to Haddad and Yusef that Saeed knows of such things because of his past in the Iraqi Republican Guard, and Haddad suggests it may have been fate that Saeed was brought to them. Back to the island, Jack isn't the only one in dire need of rest, as Charlie and Son are trying to convince a very exhausted Claire to sleep. She's afraid to, in case something should happen to the baby, and she's not at all reassured when Charlie calls him Turnip Head. And then finally, Charlie convinces Claire by... I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Swearing he will personally guard the baby until she wakes up. Down at the beach, a grieving Shannon, she sits alone. John Locke walks over tentatively and offers her Boone's belongings. They talk about how brave and how stubborn Boone was. Locke acknowledges Shannon's grief and anger, offers his condolences, and asks for forgiveness. As he leaves, Shannon watches him walk away, and then she begins to cry. Back at Saeed's tent, Shannon reminds Saeed he offered to help her. The only help she wants is revenge on John Locke. At Jack's tent, Kate has Jack drinking juice out of a bowl. He tries to give it back to her, but she insists he finish it all. He needs to get his blood sugar back up. Jack tries to get up and find John Locke again. Kate strongly advises that he lie down because she crushed sleeping pills into the juice that she gave him. Well, look at Kate there, Freckles. As Jack tries to process the fact that Kate just drugged him, he falls heavily into sleep. At the caves, we have John Locke, and he's trying to wash the blood out of his shirt when Saeed approaches. He asks Locke about his scare, and Saeed asks Locke to take him to the Beechcraft, under the pretext of retrieving any working parts from the radio. Saeed and John Locke walk through the jungle towards the plane. Saeed asks several questions of Locke, feeling him out as they go. Locke notices the interrogation and suspects that it's because Jack called him a liar in front of everyone at the funeral. Saeed doesn't deny it. Finally, they arrive at the downed craft, and then we have the back to the flashback. Saeed and Assam are playing soccer in the park. The conversation turns toward the plans of cells. Haddad has been asking Saeed technical questions about blast radius and transport methods for explosives, but hasn't mentioned whether any have been acquired yet. Assam doesn't know, but he has been told his role in the mission. Assam is to martyr himself as a suicide bomber, but has his doubts. Saeed relays this information to Agents Cole and Hewitt and pleads with them to help get Assam out. They refuse because if Assam disappears, the cell will become suspicious, scrap the mission, and the explosives will disappear again. The agents instruct Saeed to convince Assam to go ahead with the mission. Saeed refuses, and Agent Cole threatens to have the CIA arrest Nadia as an enemy combatant with a record of insurgency, I should say. Why did I say insurgency? If Saeed ever wants to see Nadia again, he will have to convince his friend Assam to blow himself up. That's just a predicament. Back at the beach, Charlie is having a hard time getting the baby to stop crying, and Hurley tries to help him out. They sing him a lullaby, check his diaper, and finally Hurley pulls out the "I got you, I feel good," and that doesn't work. And then after he does this at the top of his lungs, but to no avail. And then back at the Beechcraft, Saeed inspects the wreckage, including the bags of heroin. Locke asks why Saeed doesn't trust him, and Saeed says a part of it is the gun in John Locke's pocket, as he kept that a secret. Locke hands over the weapon and tells Saeed where it came from, but That isn't trustworthiness, according to Saeed. You're just trying to win me over. Locke admits that during the mission to triangulate Danielle Rousseau's signal, it was Locke. It was John Locke who knocked Saeed out. Saeed, mad, grabs the gun in one hand and then John Locke's throat in the other. Locke says he didn't do it to protect. He did it to protect the group because the message said it killed them. It killed them all, and it didn't seem like a good place to go. Saeed then asks about the hatch, and then Locke sidesteps and says that the plane has a hatch at each end. Back to the Saeed flashback. Saeed and Assam are walking through Sydney. Assam is terrified and wants to back out. Saeed tells him to do it for the greater good. When Assam doubts the goodness of a suicide attack, Saeed tells him to do it for Zahara. Someone must avenge her death. This solidifies Assam, his will. He decides to do it and asks Saeed to go with him. For Assam, Haddad was right. They had been brought together by fate. Back at the island, we have Saeed ask Shannon to take a walk with him. He tells her he's spoken with Locke and believes Boone's death was honestly an accident. Shannon is not satisfied. She tells him to forget about it. At the raft, we have Walt asking questions about the safety of the raft, and Michael tries to reassure him. Charlie walks by with the crying baby, and Sawyer expresses his irritation at the sound of the crying, and then he says, Baby Huey is like nails on a chalkboard. However, the baby immediately stops crying, and Charlie understands quickly and starts following Sawyer around because it's the only thing that's worked so far. At Jack's tent, a groggy Jack wakes up as Kate watches over him. She's brought food, but he doesn't trust it. Suddenly, he notices the key to the gun case is missing from his necklace. He starts looking around frantically for it, and then Saeed notices the commotion and then walks over to see what's going on. Jack assumes that Locke took it and is after the guns, but Saeed believes that someone else may be responsible. It starts pouring rain as Shannon pulls a gun from the case. Back to the flashback. We have a van pulling up to Saeed as he leaves the apartment. Haddad and Assam tell him the time has come to get it in. They drive to a warehouse and then get the truck full of explosives. Haddad gives them both last-minute instructions and gives Assam a pistol in case of trouble. Then he leaves. As Assam starts the truck, Saeed tells him to stop. He admits to working with the CIA and offers Assam a 10-minute head start before he calls the authorities. Assam is furious at Saeed's betrayal, and he holds a gun to Saeed's throat. And instead of killing him, however, he turns the gun on himself. Saeed, Jack, and Kate sprint through the jungle in the rain. Saeed breaks into clearing first and finds Shannon with a gun pointed at John Locke. They try to talk her down, but she doesn't believe them. Saeed tackles her just as she fires, and Locke falls to the ground. Shannon is furious and runs away. Kate runs after her. Jack looks at Locke's grazed head and walks away disgusted, leaving Locke sitting in the mud. Later, Charlie sits in Sawyer's tent with the baby while Sawyer reads from a automotive magazine. The sound of his voice is still the only thing keeping the baby from crying. As they find out whenever Sawyer stops, the baby starts to cry again. And then Claire wakes up, or she walks up as she is woken up, curious, and sits down with them. Saeed stares at a now subdued Shannon from a distance, and Kate tries to comfort him. Saeed wonders out loud if he didn't make a mistake. There's always a choice. Outside the warehouse, back to the flashback, of course, Assam's covered body is being wheeled away. Agent Cole honors her end of the deal and tells Saeed that Nadia lives in Irvine, California. She gives him some money and a plane ticket for a flight to Los Angeles, which leaves in 2 hours. Saeed is curious what will happen to Assam's body and is told unless someone claims the body, it will be cremated. This is something that they don't like in Muslim tradition, and Saeed demands his flight be pushed back so he can claim the body and make proper funeral arrangements. And the agents agree, and he will be booked the next day on Oceanic Flight 815. Back to the island, John sits at the fire putting messing with his hand. Sayid approaches and Locke thanks him for saving his life, and Sayid explains that he did it because he senses that Locke will be their best hope for survival on the island, but he doesn't forgive Locke, and he doesn't trust him. Sayid demands Locke take him to the hatch, and Locke tries to sidestep again, but Sayid won't hear any more lies, and that's what ends this episode of Lost. So pretty good episode. Interesting stuff here. I liked it. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10, and obviously the character of the episode is Sayid. I think Locke and Shannon deserve special recognition, as well as maybe Jack. And a lot of people are good in these episodes, so I don't want to pick like 10 people. So I think Sayid, Locke, and Shannon. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please don't forget to Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are on this episode of Lost. What would you rate it? Who would be your characters of the episode? Remember to interact with me and the legendary Crazy Coffee Man, who is watching Lost for the first time. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel, join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDEV TV.